Welcome to the City of Southport WinterFest Holiday Tea. We're glad you're here. Come on in.
Hi, my name is Alice Gardiner. I'm a resident of Southport, and we're really happy to have you here for our tea this afternoon. We know you're going to enjoy it. We're going to have fun.
Thank you for coming. My name is Linda Pukenas, and this is my home, as well as the Robert Rourke Inn. And we are very honored to have you here. This is the 4th annual tea, and we're just as excited as we are for every one of them. It's put together by the Robert Rourke Society and a team of women within the city that enjoys putting this great event on. And we do it in conjunction with the City of Southport. As the 4th year, we've been able to host people for teas as well as entertainment and auction on the first Saturday every December, and that has been great. So likewise, we are so happy to be here today. The event has not only been a fun social event, but it's also been a fundraiser. And we've been able to do a number of things in conjunction with the city and Department of Tourism that has really made a difference, and other departments as well in Southport. One of the things we were able to do with the money that you all helped raise, which was wonderful, was add some Adirondack chairs up by the Garrison lawn. And I know that many people have enjoyed that, as have I. And so that was a wonderful addition. There were also some picnic tables that were put in place by using that money, which was wonderful. And recently, if you've driven by Keziah Park, there's a new roof on top of the gazebo. And that was due to the funds that were raised by the holiday tea. We've also been able to help assist with the new Indian meeting hall and the bathrooms that were redone. And a huge thing that we've been able to do that not everybody can see, but as you know, we have a forestry committee out there all the time working on our trees to make sure they live long lives. And we've been able to support some of the things that they've done to give nutrients to the trees and make sure that these live oaks are here for a long, long time. So we thank you for that, and we welcome you for today. So we're going to start into the kitchen in a little bit, but before we do, let me just tell you a little about the house. As many of you might know, this is the Atkins Workhouse. It was built in 1890. It was built by Captain Atkins and his wife Charlotte. Captain Atkins was a riverboat captain, and he had a daughter, Charlotte. Well, they raised Charlotte here, and Charlotte went on to get married, and she had a son, Robert Rourke. So a lot of people know this as the Robert Rourke Inn. It's a house that was restored in 2009, and it was at one time owned by Robert Rourke, but it was owned by Captain Atkins, his maternal grandfather. Robert Rourke, some people may not know, but he went on to be a famous author and a syndicated writer. In addition, one of his books became a movie, Something of Value. Sidney Poitier and Rock Hudson may be a few people that you may recognize their names. If not, just know that they were very popular actors, and they did a fabulous job in this movie. It was a very, very heart-connecting movie. And one of his Rourke's most famous books was The Old Man and the Boy. And that is a very popular book. We hear a lot of people still get it and give it to their grandchildren and read it. It was all about Robert Rourke's experience with Captain Atkins, and much of it is written about Southport. And there are definitely important parts about it that reflect upon this house, which Robert Rourke spent his summers and his weekends and a lot of time with his old man, his grandfather, who taught him life's lessons. So, and to show you a little bit, Robert Rourke was so popular in the 40s, 50s, and 60s as he grew his career. He was actually a spokesperson for TWA. This is an ad that appeared in many newspapers back in that day. And if you're not sure about TWA, it's an old airline that was around, but a very popular one. It was one of the most popular airlines. He also was a spokesperson for, I want to say, Florsheim Tom McMahon shoes. And this was a very, very popular shoe company back in the day, in the 50s and 60s. So this just goes to show that although we may not know his name today, we see it on streets and all around town. He was a very popular man in the day and a very good writer. So This was his basically boyhood home that he would go to quite often. And it was restored back in 2009 by a very good builder who specialized in historic home preservation and restoration. And he did a fabulous job. And we're very proud to open the doors of this house as the Robert Rourke Inn. We are open usually 12 months a year. In 2020, that was not the case, but we have many, many repeat guests, and we can't tell you how many people are now homeowners in Southport and how many people we keep in touch with on a regular basis because they just love Southport. Who doesn't, right? So, and let me tell you right now, as we move into just looking around this room, this is the parlor of a sea captain's house. And it was restored, so it may not have been with the same, it was probably plaster and it wasn't wallpapered at the time, but it did have the fireplaces. We currently have 4 working fireplaces. There are there's 5.5 baths, and there are 5 bedrooms in the home. So we enjoy welcoming guests. There's 2 staircases, one that goes to the inn and then one that goes to our private residence. A lot of the pieces around here were pieces that Rick and I actually found, and some of them were here when we purchased the inn, which was very nice. This particular room, of course, has the fireplace that would not have been a gas fireplace at the time of the house was built, but it sure makes it easy these days, as we all know. There's a screen in front of the fireplace, although it would not have been the type of screen in the Victorian age because those were mostly square. And they moved up and down on a post. And a lot of people will say, why did they move? Why were they like the ones we use today? Well, back in the day, women wore makeup, and their makeup had a lot of wax in it. So if you were sitting in a parlor at the time and you were in front of a fireplace, what happened? Your face would melt, literally melt. So when we say our face is melting now, we're just outside getting hot, but their faces would actually melt. So these screens, they would move up and down based on their height and where they sat in the chair, so that heat would not be coming right onto their faces. So, and the parlor was used a lot in those days. It was the main living space. On Sunday, the family used it, and they would be dressed coming back from church in their best attire. It was used for business meetings, if there were business meetings, but it was also used for teas, very social gatherings. You know, women did not go out to lunch and dinner by themselves back then. They would have someone accompany them, a male accompany them, or then as time grew on, of course, they were able to do all those things, but they would come visit each other with calling cards, and they would have tea, and they would be sitting in the parlor. So there also were funerals in the parlor, and births, all kinds of celebrations. So anyway, that's enough about the parlor. I would like to take you back to the kitchen so we can see what Alice is up to. We're walking down the hallway right now. When the house was restored, we were very fortunate, they were fortunate that they could restore the floors. A lot of this, the house is original. If you look even at the beadboard, our beadboard is sideways. As far as I know, there's only 2 other places in town where you'll see the beadboard like that. It's even like that in the dining room ceiling. There's a house across the street on Lord Street from ours, which is a sister house, and also the Methodist Church. And as far as I'm told, they're the same craftsmen. So we feel very fortunate. And you'll notice Southport bows. I think everyone knows about Southport bows, but if you're new to Southport, that's it right there, the beautiful molding that sits over windows and doorways. We're passing by the dining room where we're going to end up in a little bit. But until we do, I can't wait to see what Alice is doing. So I'm going to put my mask on and let her take it away. I'm putting on my mask, and we'll socially distance over here.
Okay.
So you've got it. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the kitchen, which is my favorite room in the house. This is where we've been preparing all of the items that we're going to have for our tea today. So teas can be as formal or informal as you choose. We're going to give you more of a traditional approach to tea today, and that's going to mean you're going to have little tea sandwiches. Today we've chosen chicken salad sandwiches and cucumber sandwiches. The important thing about a tea sandwich is that you cut the crusts off, so you have beautiful, dainty little sandwiches. A tea always consists of the savory sandwiches, scones, and we have two different types of scones today. These are the traditional British scones. They're a little bit more like what we would call a biscuit. And then also on our tray, we have the American scone, which is more what we're familiar with here in the States. A little bit sweeter and often has currants or cranberries or another fruit added to it. So you start with your savory, your sandwiches, then you have your scones. And a little bit of a tip on how to eat a scone is you can always eat all of the foods that you're having for your tea with your fingers. So it's not as formal as you think. If you're having scones, you break your scone, and I'll show you more about this when we're at the dining room table. You spread your clotted cream and then your jam, and then you can eat your scone with your fingers. So first you eat your sandwich, which is the savory, then you move to your scone, and then you move to my favorite part, which is the sweets part. Today for our sweets, we have little shortbread cookies, we have lemon squares, and we have beautiful strawberries that have been drizzled with chocolate. So again, this is all to your taste. You can serve whatever you'd like with your tea. It's good to garnish with some greenery, some fruits like the kiwi that we have, or grapes. Then you can also add, if you want a little more savory, you can add nuts. For your sandwiches, you might also want to add tomatoes. Just make it a beautiful, colorful presentation that your guests will enjoy. And now we'll move to the dining room when we'll begin our tea. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Alice. Oh, that looks delicious.
Now we are ready to begin our tea in the dining room. And Linda's going to tell us a little bit more about this beautiful setting.
Thanks, Alice. Welcome to the dining room. We're really happy to have you. So let me show you a little bit about how we set our table up today. So today, the tea set that we're using is actually an antique tea set from 1932. And this was from the New York Hospital private patient ward. So this actually was china that, I don't think it ever made it to the New York Hospital, but when Scammell created the china back in the day, they had this overrun that ended up at an antique store that I found. So I've had this for, probably about 20 years, and I've never used it, and now I know why I have it, so that we could use it today. So we don't always have chargers underneath tea plates, but we did today, because we wanted to make sure that everything just popped off the table. Plus we're decorating for Christmas and the holidays with a red tablecloth. So we have our teacups, and we also have a little bowl here, and that's a fruit bowl. So as Alice told you about for the tea, she'll show you how it is served, but this is the plate, and obviously that is the bowl. There's no silverware here on the table. There's just a little knife, and it's like a little butter knife, and what it is, it shouldn't really necessarily be a butter knife, but a little knife that's used for the clotted cream and some of the other things that Alice will mention to you. On the table as well, this was not available, I do not believe that they used back in the day, but a timer for tea, and very handy today, because since there are the different kinds of teas that Alice will talk about, there's different times that you're supposed to steep them, so these come in handy. So we just have them on here. This is an old tea caddy that actually has some loose tea in it. And it's one of my favorites. So that's always a handy thing to have around the house. A lot of people back in the day had biscuit jars, and this is like an old biscuit jar. So you can see their biscuits were a little tinier than the biscuits that we all get today, but they're often scones that would go in there, not just biscuits, and they're usually not as big as a traditional biscuit. So on the way out, I just wanted to show you one other thing, and that is a Russian samovar. The samovars have been around for a couple decades ago that they were used in Russia. They were very usually ornate. You would see them in silver, different metals, including brass. And what they did is they boiled the hot water in it to make the tea. And then up top here, there was also always something that was round, and it would either hold a teapot to keep the water warm, or they often had something that was on top to make milk frothy for the tea. So as you know, Russia was a big, the whole Eastern Europe was big on tea. So anyway, if you see anything like this and it has like a Russian mark on it, that's a Russian Samovar. I'm going to let Alice tell you guys all about tea and the history, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about tea, and tea is actually the highlight of the whole program this afternoon. Tea, as we know it, has been around for over 4,000 years. According to legend, an emperor in China was sitting under a tree and his cook was boiling water. Some leaves from the tree fell into the pot, and the emperor was an herbalist, so he thought, well, I think I'll try this. He did, he loved it, and tea as a beverage is born. Tea is the second most consumed beverage in the whole world, following water, of course. So a little bit about the different kinds of tea. Everything from a white tea, a green tea, a black tea, and an oolong. They're all from the same family of tea bush. It's called a Camellia sinensis. And these different types of teas, we drink them and get the different types according to how they're processed. Some are withered, they're all dried, and some are fermented. The only other tea that we actually drink here in the US and also around the world is herbal tea. And herbal teas really aren't a tea at all, but they're made of edibles like a mint or a chamomile. And again, they're not a true tea, but we think of them more as a tisane. So we're here having afternoon tea, and afternoon tea really became popular in 1840 when Anna, Duchess of Bedford, decided that she needed a little pick-me-up in the afternoon. During that time in history, you would have lunch around noon, and then dinner would be served much later, probably 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And the Duchess was getting a little peckish, so she thought she would ask her servants to bring up some tea and a tray of bread and butter and maybe a little cake. This became so popular that she would then invite other royals in with her and her friends. And so this is how tea, as we know the afternoon tea, became popular. Tea was served also in the 1700s in tea gardens throughout Europe. So you would go and have tea, you would, for a set price, you would go and visit a tea garden. They were always outside. You would enjoy tea with your friends. There would be entertainment. There would be jugglers or acrobats. And George Frederick Handel even wrote some music for these afternoon teas. So again, tea has always been a very social event. I'm going to tell you now a little bit about how to pour your tea, now that we're moving on to the tea portion. So if you're having tea and someone asks you to pour your tea, you will hand them both your tea cup and your saucer. They will pour the tea for you. And then you add your milk. Always add milk to tea and never cream, because cream will curdle in your hot tea. And because there's so many fun little rules in tea, to stir your tea, you start at 6 o'clock and take your spoon and go up to 12 o'clock. So you'll add your milk, if you choose, and stir 6 to 12, 6 to 12. Then place your spoon on the side of the saucer and have your tea. You always, if you're right-handed, pick the teacup up with your right hand, and the tea handle should be at 3 o'clock. If you're left-handed, which I am, you put your handle over at 9 o'clock and have your tea. Never raise your pinky. I went to a website that is produced in London, and it's called 10 Things That You Should Know If You're Invited to Tea at Kensington Palace. So one of the things that they said in the information was you don't raise your pinky like this. So everything's very interesting in this little game of tea. And since we're in the South, here is an interesting note. We love our iced tea here, and although tea originated in China, traveled to Europe with the Dutch, and became the national drink of England, iced tea was invented in America by an Englishman who lived in Calcutta. Business was terrible for Richard Bletchenden, who was selling hot tea at the 1904 Louisiana Purchase exhibition in St. Louis. So the enterprising Brit poured his hot tea over ice in tall glasses and made history with the refreshing new beverage. Sweet tea became very popular in the 1900s in the area of its origin, the South. It was seen as a luxury of the wealthy due to the cost of tea, sugar, and mostly ice, which was very hard to come by at that time. Tea has less than half the caffeine of coffee. You can decaf your tea yourself. Simply pour the hot water over the tea bag, pour that tea out, pour hot water over the same tea bag. The second time that you have the hot water, you'll have less caffeine. In 1884, a bread company opened the first tea room for women. It gave them a proper place to gather without a male escort, just thus keeping their reputation in place. My, how times have changed. If you want to have a royal tea, simply add champagne to your menu of tea and enjoy. And this is a very interesting tidbit since we're here in the South. Which state in the US has the only tea plantation? That would be our neighbor to the south, South Carolina. And it's called the American Classic brand of tea. So now we're going to begin our tea service.
I am so excited.
Welcome, Linda. May I pour some tea for you?
Oh, please, Alice. Is this the Christmas tea?
This is a beautiful Christmas tea. The fragrance is amazing. I wish you all could smell how beautiful it smells. So have your tea, cream and sugar if you'd like.
Oops. I love sugar cubes or so.
That's one of the fun things about having tea.
I know, to get to play with the sugar cubes. And as you told. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to begin with the savory sandwiches. Again, the crusts are removed to make it a proper tea sandwich. And then we're going to have a cucumber sandwich. All of the recipes that we're serving today are going to be on the website, so feel free to check out the recipes and you can try your hand at making your own. Now we're going to have a scone.
Oh, yum.
We're going to do the American scone.
Very nice.
And then we move to the sweets. So we will have a little bit of a lemon square, a shortbread cookie, and a strawberry to top it
I'll
off.
put that in my little fruit bite. Thank you.
You are very welcome. Now to accompany our scones, we have clotted cream, lemon curd, and strawberry jam. And enjoy.
Gosh.
And remember, at a tea, you can always use your fingers.
Oh yes, I plan on doing that. Oh, this looks delicious. So let's talk tea. There's been all kinds of different ways to make tea from the past to the present, and there's some easier ways and some not so easy ways, but they're all really fun. So in the beginning of tea life, especially in England and when it first entered into Western Europe and such, people used loose tea, and we still do today. Many tea lovers love the smell of loose tea and how fresh it is, and some of the best types of tea come as loose teas. So we are very, very fortunate to have that in our world today as well. The easiest way to make that is either by getting a teapot that has an infuser, where you just pop in a couple different tablespoons, and there you go. And then you'll actually have a couple cups from that. There are also things like this that have infusers right in the cup. You just boom, and then when you're done infusing it, because you don't want to leave the infuser in once the tea has enough taste and once it has been infused enough, because it'll get tart or it'll taste a little funny. So you can just pop it in right there. These were used more, as well as the little tea balls in the very beginning, like in the late 19th century and into early. And so these come in all different kinds of forms. You guys have probably seen them. And these would go right into a pot and then infuse the tea into there. So it was just a different way. And this is pretty easy too. All you have to do is open it up and fill it with tea. And this as well. So today we still have all these wonderful tools that help us steep tea, whether it's white, green, or black tea, or herbal tea, and it's important to know the time you want to steep tea for, so it's not too strong, so it doesn't become tart. And then, of course, the wonderful invention of a tea bag. And so these are so easy. We all use them every day. And therefore, when tea became popular and later in the 20th century, we saw more of these. These are great for just having the little tea cozy right there to put the tea bag on. So anyway, there's lots of great inventions, including this that I showed you, that will time your tea. You always want to be careful when making green tea not to oversteep it, because it will be tart and you will not be happy, trust me. I've done it many times. But I hope that you enjoy your tea however you have it.
We'd like to thank you for joining us for our WinterFest tea. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we hope that you will continue enjoying tea throughout the winter. Happy holidays.
Thank you. And I'm very grateful for you coming into my home and being part of my holiday celebration and my family's holiday celebration. It's wonderful. And I wish you all the very best. A wonderful Christmas, a wonderful Hanukkah, happy holidays, and the most wonderful 2021. And thank you again for making this such a special Christmas time.